If you look at some of the data at times, you actually see very few firings or hirings. People are just kind of frozen. And then candidly, you have workers of all types, whether they be entrepreneurs who are trying to start a business, whether they be innovators who are trying to come up with new ideas, whether it be in a lab or in a classroom, or workers who are kind of stuck in the middle and do not know what to do because so much is changing. It's important to really say that. Some of this is due to forces that candidly are bigger than any one of us. Some of them, candidly, are from the decisions directly of people that we can all point to and identify that have created the uncertainty and some of the job losses that we have seen. And where it begins to show up is then you have one of the highest unemployment rates for college graduates recently that we've ever seen. Some of that is due to the fact that you're seeing entry-level jobs change, but we're not quite sure if it's AI yet or something else. But it's changing than it was 5 years ago, for example. I'll use one particular example. Here in the state of Maryland, where I am from, I serve as vice chair of the Maryland Higher Education Commission through Governor Moore. Cybersecurity is one of our biggest industries because cybersecurity, we have the National Security Agency literally about a half hour from my house with U.S. Cyber Command and everything else. 5 years ago, if you got any type of training in cybersecurity, candidly, you were practically hired before you walked out the door because it was such a need. We had about, I believe, 562, we had 30,000 unfilled cybersecurity jobs in this state. Now we have almost the same number of unfilled cybersecurity jobs, but what's different now is an entry-level cybersecurity job requires 3 to 5 years of experience, which when you think about it, doesn't quite make sense. But what you begin to hear anecdotally, beyond maybe just some contraction, is that technology is beginning to replace some of the things that an entry-level employee would have done.
New hires for recent college graduates, it's slowed down. I know so many of my daughter's friends who are struggling to try to figure out what to do. They spent all this money in college and now they don't know what to do because what they learned maybe it's not helping them. So that brings back the problem and the question, which is, how do we fix that?
I mean, it's a great question. So what I think about is a couple of things. I think what I hear you describing, you said a little bit in your question, which is, hey, I went to college, I paid this money, I put in this time, but when I came out, I didn't quite get the result that I expected. And a guy I used to work for, Tony Wagner, who wrote the book, The Global Achievement Gap in Creating Innovators. He's an old, dear friend. He used to have this phrase, which is, we need to make the world of school match the world of work. And candidly, whether it be in K-12, whether it be higher ed, even at times in the workforce, those two worlds don't match. And the key is, how do we make them match? And so when I think about this for my son is 8, my daughter is 3, and I think about their future, when I think about what higher education, for example, would have to look like, candidly, and we're thinking about this in the state of Maryland, work-based learning has been considered kind of a luxury, which is, I'm a fellow at Northeastern University, which is renowned for their co-op program, which is basically that every student actually has time on site somewhere working. They have 4,000, 5,000 corporate partners. They are a rarity. And what you'll hear a lot in higher education is, oh, I have an internship program. I have this 3-month study abroad thing, or I do days on the job. Work-based learning is no longer a luxury. I would argue almost every type of training from K-12 to higher ed to certificates, everything has to have a strong work-based learning component, because if it doesn't, we're going to run into these issues where effectively the entry-level positions will get harder to get because they'll require more experience, because technology may take some of those more rote immersion tasks. And the only way to get around that is effectively students have to arrive with the equivalent of work-based learning experience and receipts to show, hey, I actually can do this. What I'm describing is not easy. It is very difficult, but it is more difficult if we don't do it. And we have more of this issue because, candidly, when I think about the statistics that I see on decreasing levels of optimism, frustration with our societal and political processes, a worsening economy and worsening individual economic prospects make those things worse, not better. And I would even go a step further to say they are a large part of the cause of those feelings of decreased optimism. Not fully, lots of other things there, but we don't solve them without making sure that everyone has a strong pathway and economic future of their choosing.